Electrostatic discharge? I'd go to a doctor if I were you. Fresh and buds now.
Fresh and
All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. It is a solo episode this week. I am moving, and I think I only have one day with internet at this house before I have to move everything, my whole office. So we're just going to send it. We're going to have a little bit of a mailbag. I'm going to be talking about reactions from Philadelphia, which I just got back from. It's going to be a good time, so buckle in, spend some time with me, and it'll be a fun episode. Now, I just got back from Philly, and it was a lot of fun. I think these events are just so cool to see everybody come around from all over the country, all over the world, and come together for Flesh and Blood. It's really interesting to see, people, and also just to see how different buds are going to interact with each other, which I think is a lot of fun as well. I got to give a shout out to some people. First of all, the people that I stayed with, Mr. Viz, Darth Prentice, Seth, and Caleb. That was a great time. We, really just big bud energy all around. Got to give a shout out to Anderson, who popped over to me and gave me his PvE book that he's been working on, which was awesome. It was just super kind. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to dig into it and check it out and hopefully play with some buds. I believe you can print the book on fabpve.com, so check that out. But it is cool, LSS is not doing PvE, so we might as well just take it into our own hands, which Anderson did. So very, very cool. Got to give a shout out to everybody I talked to. Everybody said they love the show. That's really so kind and really nice. And it was a great weekend. I played against a lot of great people as well. I did mostly side events, which is, I usually don't do that, but I had a wedding come up last minute that was on the Battle Hardened day, so I couldn't do that anymore. Didn't want to play LL, so I just did CC side events and one sealed side event, and I just had a blast. I did really well on them, got a lot of tickets, and got a hunted box and maybe some play mats. Which if you're watching on YouTube, if you look to I guess my right, I have plenty of play mats, and I definitely don't need more. But why the heck not? So it was a great weekend. It always has me leaving invigorated about Flesh and Blood when these large events happen. Everybody comes together, and you get to see everybody be super excited. We'll talk about the keynote a little bit, but also I just want to give a shout out to Michael Jasker, who won Worlds on Syndra and Dio, I believe. Michael Jasker's, side note, is the my first streamed game at a tournament was against Michael. He was on Oldham, I was on Riptide. I lost. I should have put the Boulder Trap counter on the Rampart. That was a huge mistake. Yeah, you live and you learn. But Michael, took Syndra to the house, kind of what I assumed would happen. Now, it was the only Syndra in the top 8, and I thought there might be more, but the top 8 was relatively diverse, right? Except for Verdance was the most represented in the top 8. 3 Verdances, one of the best decks, right? To be fair, I would say, going into the weekend, Verdance, Gravy, Syndra, 3 best decks. There was 3 Verdance, 2 Gravy, 1 Syndra, and then we had Prism and a KO, which was cool to see as well. So not super diverse, but kind of what it was expected. KO's kind of being the dark horse there, as good as he is, but it was piloted by Florin Christian Logan, who's been on the show, and yeah, it was very cool to see it all come together. I watched some of the stream today, while I was working and recovering from the weekend. So got to give a shout out. I'm interested to see if there's going to be any bans for CC, not LL. I mean, they're probably going to totally refigure out LL after this, but for CC. I wonder if they're going to touch anything. Is it worth it? I think RTN season is in January, so that would be the thing you'd want to touch now. And I think it's like December, like the first week of December, there's a ban list update. So personally, I would like to see the Throw Dagger card gone in Syndra, and everything else I think could probably stay. But that's their prerogative. It could be just fine. I mean, there's really good decks, but maybe they want it like that. That's that's up to them. So great weekend. Now let's talk about the keynote. Brian did a great job, of course, doing the keynote. We found out what Penn stood for in set 18, and that is Compendium of Wraith, the new supplemental set where, allegedly there's going to be something for everyone. So very, very cool. We saw some spoilers, and there's also going to be an antiquity pack with it, which is going to be like a gold pack from High Seas, and it's going to have alternate art card or alternate border cards, and I guess art too, some of them, from the reprints in the set, because there's a decent amount of reprints. Balance of Justice being one, Shelter from the Storm, and they showed the new borders, and they look cool, I guess. I don't know. It always looks worse on the digital mock-up than it does in person, so I'll hold my judgments for that until I see it in person. But Balance of Justice reprint, Eye of Ophidia, there's a couple of Fable reprints, I guess, Shelter from the Storm, and as well as a lot of support for Silver Age coming in the set as well. It's going to be a kind of Silver Age weekend for the world premiere. I think you get like pre-cons on the Friday, and then get to like add like cards from Compendium for the tournament on the weekend. So should be interesting. It's in London, very cool. But we saw some spoilers. We saw RKO's signature weapon. People aren't really loving it. Savage Claw, which is a brute weapon, one-handed claw that attacks for 3. You got to pay 2, and you have to tap it to attack. It's not a once per turn action, so there is that. And it says if a card with 6 or more attack was pitched to attack with this, the attack gets +1. Now I gotta say, it's a tap effect, and there's noticeably one other tap reviled thing going on in Super Slam, and that was Concealed Weapon, I think is the name, which is interesting. So maybe, just maybe, we're going to get a kind of cheating, you're untapping stuff for the reviled talent that makes Savage Claw actually work. I'm hoping. So that would be kind of interesting. The weird thing is that Savage Claw needs a 6 to pitch, but RKO doesn't really run a lot of 6s they want to pitch, so maybe they want people to build the deck in a different way. But maybe KO Armed and Dangerous isn't going anywhere, and we'll have Mandible Claw for a long time. So we'll see. There have been plenty other spoilers, but we'll talk about more of those as we get closer to the set. And of course, looking forward to the set review that I'll be doing. Silver Age was a huge part of what they were talking about and how much support there's going to be. I think we might have talked about it last week, but the Showdown format is coming and is taking over Battle Hardens every Sunday at these World Tour weekends. It's always going to be a calling, and then on the Sunday there's going to be a Showdown, which is like a better prize pool Battle Harden. I think $5,000 prize pool, more gold foils, same amount of PTIs, and they're always going to be Silver Age, right? Because you can easily have that be as long or like as many rounds as like theoretically possible for a Sunday, because of it being a young hero format and the games just go quicker. So I like that. Now, the big question going into the weekend was, yeah, we know what Silver Age is now. We know the ban list. We know all these things. We know that they're going to support it. They're really putting, their cart on this horse. What is the Living Legend leaderboard system going to be? And it is not going to be a Living Legend system. It is going to be a player voted ban list of sorts. So each season will have a voting system in place to remove heroes from sanctioned Silver Age events, putting the power in the hands of the community. So there should be more info here, but I think they said that the top 3 voted heroes will get essentially banned for a season of Silver Age, right? This is in between sets. And that will be kind of how it will work. And then when it comes back, if it gets voted out again, it'll be gone for 2 seasons. And then if it comes back and it gets voted out again, it'll be banned for 3 seasons. It's interesting. I am not entirely sure if it'll work in practice. I'm hoping it does. I think it's worth, us all checking it out for sure. So very excited. They also announced where Nats is going to be for the U.S. Minneapolis is in June. And then the Pro Tour, second Pro Tour of the year is in Vegas in mid-July. So they gave us a nice roadmap for events, which was cool. So that was all exciting. We'll see. Some people are maybe not happy about reprints. I'm happy about reprints. We'll see. The Compendium Wraith will be interesting. I am more excited to see the whole list and see what we're getting and what the support for some of the heroes that we all really, really love are going to get. Riptide being one of them. There's a lot of talk about Teklo getting some stuff, and it all remains to be seen, and we will speculate more as that gets closer. Also, a new Armory deck Origins was announced, Hala, which I believe was either Bolton or Dorinthia's mentor in one of the precons. But it is Hala, Blade Saint of the Vow. Just a warrior hero, 4 intellect, 40 health, and then has action, pay 3 resources and tap, sharpen, target sword you control, go again. And sharpen says put a +1 counter on it, remove all +1 counters at the end of turn. There will be sharpen probably support alongside that. Interesting design. We'll see what it actually looks like. We still don't even have the Slippy Armory deck yet. We just got Rhinar. So that was the keynote. All things pretty exciting. Silver Age being a focus is cool. Not a lot of talk about LL, but that's okay. I think they need to revisit it. I think it should be closer to a format like in Magic, where it's Vintage or Legacy, where it's whatever. It's going to be the busted stuff, and certain people are going to like playing it, and that's it, right? And, maybe a larger event here and there will happen, but for the most part, the focus, in my opinion, should be on Limited, CC, and Silver Age. So excited to see that being a focus going forward. Just do what works, right? And we'll all be happy. No, we won't all be happy. That's not how card gamers work. But we'll try to be happy. How about that? Let's all make a pledge in 2026 to try to be happy all the time. But we'll see how that goes. Now, let's get into the mailbag. These questions are submitted in the Buds Discord, which is free for everybody to join. Capolo, of course, sent 1 billion questions, but I have some from some other people as well, and I will be answering them as best I can. So let me see. Okay, so Capolo sent a while ago a bunch of questions, in anticipation of another mailbag episode. So I'll read those, and I'll go through some others, and then I will revisit Capolo's new questions. to close it out. How's that sound? Everybody sound good? Comment right now. Does that sound good? Oh, wow. That was a lot of comments. I'll read them later. First question from Capolo. Do you see different numbers based on players, creators, Brian Go, etc.? Which demographic gets the most listens, which the least? This is like an interesting question. I think there's a certain amount of draw to some people specifically. Like Brian Gottlieb is usually a big draw, right? You know, people want to know what Brian has to say. But I think that everybody, so like my audio listens are always consistent. It's YouTube that is really the difference, right? Where I'll see it. And I think the YouTube, it's not really guest focused as much. It's more what's happening in Flesh and Blood. Are we talking about something that people care about? You know, what time of year is it, right? Like next week is my Thanksgiving episode. That usually doesn't get a lot of listens because a lot of people are doing, you know, Thanksgiving stuff here in the States and traveling and this and that. Typically like December is a little bit of a down month, right? Because it's the lull after Worlds where we haven't quite gotten to Compendium or Wraith or whatever set one for 2020 the next year is. So it all depends. Sometimes things like, you know, like I'll put out something. I'm like, oh, this is probably a slow week because of whatever. And then it does really well. I think it's hard to predict any of this. You know, if I could predict it, I would probably do the podcast differently. But I like the way I do it. So there you go. Next question from Capolo is, if you were to get James White on Fresh and Buds, what's the most pressing question that I would want to ask him? This is an interesting one. I've talked to, I've been in negotiations to get James White on the show before. Just hasn't worked out. If anybody listens to my Patreon episodes of podcasts, they might know exactly what I would want to ask. But I think that if I ever got James White on the show, which I think at this point is not going to happen, right? I don't know. I don't think it's worth it for him. I don't know if, you know, I will be able to schedule it, you know, and there's a lot of moving parts, you know, with what's going on in my life, and I'm sure his as well. I mean, it's hard to be the CEO, creator of a game, and a father all at the same time. So that is a tough task. So, but if I had him on, I would want to know, like, is there a time when you're not thinking outside of like family and stuff like that? Is there a time where you're not thinking about Flesh and Blood and you are really interested in something else, right? You know, because it's his whole life, and I would want to know, what else are you really geeking out on that isn't this game or other TCGs, right? I would like to know that. I think that would be an interesting question. Next question from Capolo is, besides James White, are there any guests you would like to have on the show that you were not able to get them? Yeah, I think there's a lot of people I'd love to have on, and just like timing never works. I mean, eventually we'll get to Charmer, I'm sure, but we rarely have time for him. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm down for almost anybody, I think, right? You know, if they seem like they're buds, I'm down to chat with anyone. I'm sure. Yeah, for me, if the vibes are good, I'm happy and we can have a great conversation. So I'm not sure if there's any like buddy that I haven't had on. There's people I've talked about getting on, and then just like the timing hasn't worked. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody specific that like, oh, I haven't got them on yet, but it's more like, or I haven't talked to them at all. You know, at one point, you know, there was the idea of maybe getting the professor, which just seems like crazy. Like, right, that is that is somebody so out of Flesh and Blood's world, and also just like a small little podcast world. So not ever expecting that. So yeah, I don't know. I would like to, I mean, I guess like I've done the 2 of the 3 floating guys. I would like to get the 3rd. That would be cool. And then, just stuff like that, kind of like finish the what I started with some guests, I guess. I don't know. I also like having people back. I think that's also cool, right? Because it's cool to have new people, but part of this podcast is hanging with buds, and if I have somebody back, that means I really like them, so they're a bud. But thanks for the question. What's next? Oh, this is this is this is a really old question from Capolo, but it is: if you were to get the grant for the content creation from LSS, what would I do with it? So I do know what I would have done with it. I would have updated equipment. I don't think I need a new PC. Whatever. If it runs editing software and lets me use my mic, I don't really need the new PC. But probably, I would have got a new camera, but I got one anyway because I was like, well, if I would have gotten one with that money, it's like, might as well invest it anyway. But I would have wanted to get a really solid travel setup for the podcast, so that, like, if I was at Philadelphia this past weekend, I could have really set up a podcast, right? I just brought like my camera, some mics that hook up to my phone, and like, yeah, I think I could probably do a full podcast like that, but it just wouldn't. It would be not up to my standards, I guess, for all the work it would be. Like, if I'm going to do that, I want it to be like legit, right? I look at Ethan, right, and I really appreciate Ethan, what he does for the game, and just, it was a miracle. He just like really honed in the equipment, the travel setup for all those years before, really hit the big leagues, and just seeing that, like, kind of would be the inspiration there. And hey, listen, they want live gameplay. I would have tried to make that setup too. So, but yeah, that question is from August 21st. So, I did not get the content creation grant. For anybody who was wondering, have you ever thought to create more video content from Fresh and Buds outside of podcast, gameplay, deck tech, spoilers? Yeah. I've thought about it. I like making, like, the spoilers. I like being creative and doing like skits and like kind of like these narrative things, or little ideas. I've always liked doing like sketches. When I was first getting a camera in high school in the before the 2010s, me and my friends would make sketches and stuff like that. We liked channels like Balloon Shop and stuff like that. So we liked it. And I would like to do more of that. And I think there's a lot of funny stuff that we can do in Flesh and Blood too. So maybe that's something I can work on in 2026. That would be kind of cool. And then finally, for the first batch of Capola questions, is rank your Discord admin based on how likely they will be to let you win a game of Flesh and Blood. All right, who are my admins? Let's take a look here. I don't know how to. I'm pretty sure it's just Gary and Seth are my admins. Maybe Greg, but I don't know who I give. I don't know who I give absolute power to. But how likely would they be to let me win a game of Flesh and Blood? I don't think Gary would ever let me win a game of Flesh and Blood. Mr. Viz is, likes the integrity of the game, and we played a lot of Silver Age over the weekend, and I was wiping the floor with him, and then I kind of told him what he needed to do against me, and then he started beating me. But Seth, I don't know if Seth could win a game of Flesh and Blood against me, and that's if he's listening, that's just for him. But moving on, we'll get back to Capolo, who just loves questions, does it on this podcast and my indie game podcast with my cousin. He's just a question machine. Darth Prentice, aka Greg, asks, what are your opinions on slabs/grading TCG cards? Is there a holy grail trading card you would want to own one day? So I don't mind the slabs and grading. I like if the point is to collect it, I think that is totally valid. I have Cold Foil Heart and Cross Strap that's graded by one of the companies. It's not PCG, but and that's cool. I think that's cool because whatever. It's like kind of a rare card. It's a piece of Flesh and Blood history. I want to have it like slabbed, so I am totally for it. When people are busting them out in a game, I think it's kind of funny. It doesn't really bother me, but I could see why maybe some people are like, ugh, but for the most part, I think it's pretty cool. Is there a Holy Grail trading card you would want to own one day? Oh man, I don't know. I don't really think so. Maybe a cold foil like scab skin leathers would be really neat. I'm thinking about like iconic cards that from the games that I play, which is just Flesh and Blood, and scab skin would be the one, I guess. A cold foil tunic would be really neat, but I'm not like pining for that, if that makes sense. Scab skin leathers, I'm like, okay, that would be some like brute bling. Makes sense. It'd be really cool to see. I think also like a skullbone cross wrap would be also really neat. So something like that. And then a bonus question: what hero do you expect to get voted off the island after season 1 of Silver Age? As we talked about before, there's going to be a voting system. I think, from what I've seen, Azalea is probably in the running of first to go. Her power level in that format seems like pretty good. So I would expect her to go. So we'll see. It really has to shape out because the data is all anecdotal at this point. And we could start playing these games and things will get a little crazy. So next is from Caleb, aka Gravy Bones Esquire. What is it like being the most attractive content creator of all time and all of all hobbies? I'm the most attractive content creator. That's really nice to know. I don't think I'm the most attractive content creator in Flesh and Blood because Hayden Dale exists, folks. Have you checked out Arsenal Pass as a attractive man? And Ponkish, gives him a run for his money too. So holy moly. Thank you though, Caleb. I appreciate the ego boost. I could always use it. Sigma comes in and asks, ideally, if you could move to a city in the US, which one and why? And goes on to say, I would love to live in Savannah, Georgia. Don't ask me why. There's something calling me there for years now. So, Sigma comes from Europe. And Savannah is probably a great choice. I've been there. It's a beautiful city. Pretty warm weather, which is not for me. But that wouldn't be my pick. My pick, I think I've made it pretty clear on the pod before. I think Portland, Maine is my favorite city in the country. Just the kind of like northern city kind of hardness. Brings people together. I think a little bit. Then you got great seafood. There's a great beer scene. And also you're just like in Maine. So you're never that far from beautiful wilderness, the beautiful coastline. Most coastline out of any state, by the way, Maine. Google it. So yeah, I would say there. I think in terms of other cities, I really enjoyed Pittsburgh. Anytime I've gone there, I don't know if I could live there, but I could see myself doing it. I enjoyed Pittsburgh. Let me think about some other cities. Yeah, I like Boston too. A lot of the New England cities I really like. I liked Minneapolis when I went there. I don't know if I'd move there, but I did like it. And, I don't know about the West Coast. I've only really been to like LA and I guess if you count Vegas and I guess Long Beach. But I hear the Pacific Northwest is really nice as well. So probably something like that. But I'm happy here in the great state of New Jersey. So I won't be going any. I just bought a house, so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So, but it will be interesting. Why is this not showing names? Oh, Jim Naban, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, asks, who are you planning on voting to ban in Silver Age, and what was your favorite book growing up? So who am I planning on voting to ban in Silver Age? So it is kind of hard to say right now, but in what I've played against, I would vote Azalea, I think, right? I think that is like I would do that for the good of the format, right? Not because I feel like I have a particular rough time into it or anything like that, but I would do that because I think a lot of people would do it, and you're just like, all right, well, if a lot of people think that, I'm going to give a vote towards it. But I think I would probably vote to ban Oldham. I don't know. I played against an Oldham the other day, and I totally forgot that Oldham has like a hero ability, and it's like really good. You're just like, oh yeah. I mean, you're pitching an ice card, and I'm losing half my turn. They're pitching an earth card, and they're preventing 2 damage and keeping a card in deck. Yeah, I think Oldham. Sorry to say, as much as I love Oldham, might be a good choice to get out of there, and I think might be getting my first vote. And my favorite book growing up, that is easily The Hobbit. I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy, but like The Hobbit was just like the perfect adventure book. It's like a little episodic too, right? Each chapter feels like here's something new that's happening that they have to deal with. Tune in next time. What else are these rascals going to get into? I really like that, and it just even now as an adult, I'll revisit and just like there's a lot of wonder there, and Tolkien just like does such a good job of like creating, I think, just like heartfelt characters and really portray like the differences of people and stuff like that, and like where some things might seem negative, they can also have a lot of positives. I think that The Hobbit will always hold a place in my heart. If I ever have a little fresh one running around, the pitter patter of little fresh feet, that would be probably one of the first books I would want to read to them, if they wanted me to, of course. So thank you for the questions. Junior, who saw this weekend as well, great time always seeing Junior. What 2 heroes would you want to have kids, and what would they end up being? I'm assuming that you're asking like what class they would end up being. So like the easy one would be like, oh, like Kano and Dorinthia have a kid, and it's a Runeblade because it's like a wizard and a warrior. But I think who would I ship, right? Like where I can't say like Azuri and Riptide because I think like there's a weird power dynamic, because they're like kind of his boss, but like he's kind of like a little rogue. I think that might be, we might have to go to the Pits HR on that one. But who else? Oh man, I think. Okay. This might this might sound crazy, but I want Mech to meet Brute somewhere, right? So maybe Dash and Rhinar, or how about this? Max and Leviah, right? That would be kind of crazy. So we've already seen a little bit of a splash of a shadow mechanologist, but like, what if we got brute involved? I feel like swinging a wrench is already brute like, and I think that is something that could be explored if I'm being totally real with everybody. So yeah, Max and Levia have a baby, a child, a kid, a little one, a little hero, young hero, and it is a shadow, like brute, like essence of mechanologist or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to workshop that one. That one's a little brutal. But next comes from Mr. Viz, aka Cole for Backup, aka Gary. The product listing for Compendium lists 3 fables. Which of the fables will join Eye of Ophidia, and which one will be your first? So, do we know that they're reprints? I guess they must be all reprints. So, I don't think they're reprinting Tropeldani or Tropeldani. I've been saying Tropeldani, and like then people were like saying Tropeldani, which makes way more sense. It sounds tropical and not tropical, but Tropeldani is just like it just sounds like, I don't know. Tropeldani is like, this mafioso guy. But I think it's a little too soon for that. I think they would think that as well. Although it is one of the most playable. I mean, if they're doing I wouldn't be surprised to see Heart. I hate to say it, Gary. I don't think they're reprinting Arknight Shard, although that's probably good for you. What are some other fables that could be reprinted? I think they have to put a new one out, right? And I think that would be cool because, we're getting like the Compendium of Wraith, like just like this, basically like a lore book version of a set. I don't know, or a set that's like a version of a lore book. So something like some kind of tome, not even a gem, but just like the lore book is the fable or something like that. That would be kind of cool, right? I think that would be not bad. So, and which one will be my first? Hopefully the new. Actually, you know what? Hopefully I have Ophidia in the Antiquity pack or something like that, because let's be real, that one's probably going to cost a bit. So, but thanks for the question. Moving on to the second batch of Capolo's question. Here we go. Commoner quickly died locally for Capolo. And Sage is very similar in card pull and power level. What do you think Sage has over Commoner to succeed? Now, Capolo, in that question, I'm going to disagree with you. As someone who's played Commoner and now I've played Sage, I don't think that's, yeah, all the commons are legal. You're right. But the rares are the difference maker here, right? I think that it increases the power level of so many heroes, and then also gives them a lot more identity. And I think that's why Commoner doesn't really succeed, because between commons and rares, it's not that much of a difference in like price, really. Like, we're getting so many rare. Like, when you open a box of, like, I feel like whenever I open a box of a set, I get at least a play set of rares for a young hero. If not, like, I at least will get one of each rare. And, people can fact check me on that, I guess. But it feels like pretty easy. So, like, I think that and also they're putting support in this set, right? So, like, sure, they had a couple battle hardens for Commoner, but like, they're like, hey, every showdown is Silver Age. There's going to be a ProQuest season that's Silver Age. I didn't even mention that earlier. Like, the ProQuest season for Las Vegas, there's 2 seasons. There's a CC season and a Silver Age season. That's sick, right? So, at a minimum, the competitive people are going to want to play it. And then you also got the people that are into the budget stuff, right? So I think that all of that, and it feels very different than Commoner, I think is going to be huge. So Yeah, I'm going to disagree with the similar card pool in power level because I think that this is a whole nother beast. But also the support from LSS is pretty key here. Now, next question from Andrea Biaggi is, do you have any desire to do any content that is not related to the card game sphere? Well, I do an indie game podcast called Fresh Juice. Thanks for the layup there, Cap. I can plug the other show. But I've thought about some other content to do, but like really it's like Flesh and Blood is like, making a podcast every week and like scheduling guests and stuff like that is like a decent amount of work on top of having a real job and a family and stuff like that. So I will sometimes find myself having the desire to do that, but never the time, if that makes sense. So it's all fab and a little bit of indie games for now. What's the must-have in Tommy Fresh tournament backpacks? My deck. I'm not really I stuff all the decks that I want for the weekend in my backpack, and I don't really have room for anything else other than the play mats I want to use. So I make sure I have extra sleeves of whatever deck I'm playing because I can be a sloppy, not sloppy, but I can be a rough shuffler sometimes, and then all of a sudden I get a split thing, and then you're like, I don't have another thing, and you're just like, well, let me replace it with something from the sideboard, and then all of a sudden I've been in that situation way too many times. So I like to have extra sleeves and the decks I'm playing, and I also have little Fresh and Buds cards, although they're really out of date. I gotta get nicer ones to give to people, but that is my go-to. What's behind the world of Wraith as we know it on the map? Well, on the other side is a blank sheet of paper. But you mean beyond what we've seen on the map? I think, I don't know. I think I was talking to somebody over the weekend. It's yeah, we know that whoever wrote the lore book never went past the Savage Lands. So eventually they're going to have to do a Savage Land set if they want to do other stuff, or they're going to say, we'll go somewhere else first. And the Savage Lands will never be in a set, which I think would be egregious. So I don't know what's on the other side. It's just an opportunity for them to expand their universe, right? Could be a Spider-Man world or a Lord of the Rings world. No, I'm kidding. But maybe a Street Fighter, Fortnite. I don't know. I don't really know what's going to be there. They've been pretty good about building a world so far. They do need to do more lore in general, and Compendium of Wraith hopefully rights that wrong. So, yeah. What's next? Capolo asks, when are you getting a Flesh and Blood related tattoo, and what will it be? I don't know if I'll get a Flesh and Blood related tattoo. I think if Taylor Morrow, we meet up and he's like, let's do it. I think I'd do it, right? I think I've seen him take the jump with his Arachne tattoo, and he will give me the bravery to do it with him. So I don't know what I would get. Maybe I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. It would probably have to be a Riptide one, right? But it could also be a little brute action as well. I'd want it to be probably pretty neat. Nothing too detailed. So I don't know. That's a good question. I wouldn't do a resource thing. I want it to be pretty unique to me. But who knows? I will say the Talishar sleeve that I have that William designed, William from Table Pit, where it's half an anchor, half a hexagore. That's a kind of cool design. I would get that on me because you're I got an anchor. Were you in the Navy? He was no, I play Riptide. And then I was what's that, a flail? I'm yeah, I'm into torture. So not really sure if I would do that, but it does look really cool. And then finally, what are my YouTube inspirations outside of Flesh and Blood and MTG? Well, I'm not really. So my context for YouTube, right? And I think if you look back at the history of this show, where I was kind of like, I was uploading to YouTube, but I wasn't like focusing on YouTube, where I thought YouTube died, but that's just because I wasn't watching it anymore. In reality, it became the biggest thing ever. So in high school and like beginning of college, I would watch a ton of YouTube. You know, like back then, like who was it? It's like, like Balloon Shop I mentioned earlier, Olin Rogers, Philip DeFranco. You'd watch like, you know, like Smosh, I guess, and like Good Neighbor stuff and all these other sketch comedy groups. So I'd watch them, and then I felt like YouTube was getting like a little annoying. Like it was just like all vlogs, and I didn't really like them, and like all the creators I would watch were doing that, and it really, I kind of fell off of it, and then kind of came back into the fold through Flesh and Blood. I guess I'm not really sure who my inspirations would be. Like, who inspired me to do this show the way it is? Probably not YouTube inspirations. You know, I really love the Todd Glass show, which is a now defunct podcast for the comedian Todd Glass, and always doing lots of bits and stuff like that, and just like kind of like this loosey goosey vibe. I always kind of really enjoyed that. So I guess like maybe that, but I also always loved the chaotic energy of Balloon Shop. You know, just kind of revisiting that recently. So yeah, I would say that. But with that, I think that's gonna do it for the Mailbag app. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you guys like these. It's just sometimes it's hard to get a guest on short notice or life's in the way, but I always like to put out an episode every week for everybody because I like people to depend on me. So I don't know. But that's going to do it for the show. Please check out the Discord. It's a great place to hang out. Give a shout out to the Blue Sky at freshbudspod. The Patreon. I am cooking on the Patreon. Not cooking, but I'm cooking up stuff on the Patreon. Doing a bonus episode every week. It's a little bit more this vibe, I guess, you know, with maybe a little bit more singeing hot takes and maybe you know, maybe some stuff that I wouldn't say on the public episode. Who knows? Maybe it's like really cool over there and you should check it out. Only $3 a month, and would really appreciate it if you do. Obviously, no sweat otherwise. And then Fresh Juice, indie game podcast I do with my cousin. And if you are watching this on YouTube, give us the old like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Spotify, I think you can rate it and stuff like that and sub to it. So, yeah. Some food I want to talk about. Let's see. Tomorrow, I am closing on a house, right? Very exciting. Me and Lady Fresh really like this one Mexican restaurant because the food's really good and then they make really good margaritas. So I think we're going to celebrate there tomorrow. And I'm like looking forward to it. Just like, you know, some delicious Mexican food and margaritas. It just sometimes you just need that, like some chips, salsa, guac, and you're all good to go, right? It doesn't need to be crazy. It just needs to be solid, delicious, and a good time. So thank you all. Oh, wait, Charmer. Is that you? No, it's not. Stay fresh.